You know, there's something sinister going on in our universities, and it started actually with the police. First, a Conservative would come, or a right-winger, to give a speech, peacefully, to a peaceful crowd. But then violent protesters from the left would turn up to abuse the audience, to attack them, throw things at them, scare them away, try to shut down the meeting. We saw that, for instance, when Dutch politician Geert Wilders came here, and when gay libertarian Milo Yiannopoulos visited last year. And this year, of course, with Canadian filmmaker Lauren Southern. Now, the police in Victoria particularly, very politicised. They thought, well, hang on, we don't want all this grief and we don't want all this expense when Conservatives come, or right-wingers, so we will bill them for protecting them. We will bill the peaceful speakers and not the violent protesters attacking them. And so Milo Yiannopoulos, he got a bill from the police for $50,000 in protection money, Victorian police. Lauren Southern, Victoria's police told her to pay $68,000. And now our universities are playing that same trick, helping the violent left to shut down Conservatives by making these victims pay police for protection from the left. La Trobe University this year first banned author Bettina Arndt from speaking to Liberal students. The left hate her because she says claims of a rape culture are exaggerated. We'll have her on later in the week maybe to explain this. But then the university said, all right, they caved in. All right, Arndt can speak, but you Liberal students must pay us to protect her. Eventually they dropped that demand. But now Sydney University, very left-wing, is trying it on with its own Liberal students. Vice-Chancellor Michael Spence has said, yes, Bettina Arndt may come speak, but these Liberal students, they must pay the university nearly $700 to protect her from the left-wing students. Joining me is the President of Sydney University's Liberal Club, Jack O'Brien. Jack, it's great to see you, mate. Why did you want to hear Bettina Arndt come speak?
Thanks for having me, Andrew. We're trying to promote a culture that says just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean they don't have the right to have a discussion with you. That's what universities used to always be about, and that's something we're trying to really push at university, especially since in the few preceding years, this has become a massive problem for the left. They really don't like when we speak up on these kind of things. And we're not really providing the forum to necessarily say you have to support Bettina, but it's more providing people with the opportunity to debate ideas and have discussions. And that's something that we think is really important. That's something we're going to continue to push on campus.
Oh, look, I love discussion. I love debate. I love being challenged on ideas. That's fantastic. You don't grow intellectually unless you have that. OK, so you want Bettina Arndt to come over because I think her arguments are very interesting. What did the university say?
Well, we've been a bit back and forth with the university so far. We've had a bit of a delay when it came to actually getting the venue locked in. And since then, I've personally written a letter to Spence asking him for a waiving of the security costs, as they're quite extreme, and they make it very difficult for us to have an accessible event for a majority of people because we'd have to charge more money. Since I've sent that letter, we've received a response that says, no, we will be charging you for security. And I find it quite bizarre that the university, and especially its administration, who are so happy to support free speech and public comments, are then so willing to block out students with this stopgap of pricing and high prices that they can't afford to come to events.
But Jack, this is what I don't get with any of this, right? You guys are inviting a speaker, you're going to sit down peacefully, listen to her and then go home. You're not going to belt anyone, you're not going to break anything, but you have to pay the costs of the left-wing students that people fear might come and attack you as they have attacked other students on campus. How does that figure?
And that's exactly right. And we've had that at some of our events in the past, even earlier this year. And we've seen on Facebook and on other online forums that these events to protest Bettina at Sydney University do already exist. And there's a significant amount of people attending these protest events. So there is no denying that at this talk there will be a protest and there is student safety at risk. So for us, we're in this really difficult position because on principle, we believe that this talk should 100% go ahead, whether people agree with it or otherwise. But at the same time, we need to make sure that students are being looked after when the administration isn't willing to step in and do it.
Yeah, well, it's not pleasant to have to go to a meeting knowing that you could be spat on, abused, punched
Exactly
or whatever.
right.
This is really, really unpleasant. And now the university tells you, apart from that, got to cough up $700. You guys are all students. Is that a lot of money to you?
That's a lot of money, and I think it's especially, it's something we can cover with costs. We're only charging $5 for the event. The intention for that was it could be accessible to a vast array of people. There's a reason we made the event public, so a lot of people could come along and engage, whether they agreed or otherwise. And when we have to cover these costs, we're going to have to charge more for tickets, and that reduces accessibility, and that very much inhibits people's ability to access these free talks and engage in this battle of ideas on campus.
Well, that means the left win, and that's the whole object to limit the number of people hearing wicked Bettina Arndt. Now, do any of the meetings of the left at your university need protection like this? Does the university ever have to charge them to be protected from rioting, violent conservative protesters?
Yeah, well, in my experience, and especially with members of my club, I've never seen any left protest, or left event rather, ever protested. When they host someone that we may not agree with politically, they're always comfortable having it as a public event because they're not ever worried. And we will never go and we will never protest them, and we will never stand outside screaming at them with megaphones or telling them that they can't have these opinions or calling them fascists. But we will respect that just because we disagree with them doesn't mean they don't have the right to have their views on campus.
So here's how it works. The left protests your events. They can get violent, and so you have to pay the university for security, which I think is unfair.
That's exactly right.
You don't go and protest their events, so they don't have to pay. So essentially the security charge is a tax on conservatives because the left never have to pay it. I find that amazing. Now talk about other things now that the left don't have to pay for. On Sydney University's council is Fairfax columnist Peter Fitzsimons, a man of the left. He was this year, in fact, given free use of the university's Great Hall for a big dinner for his Australian Republican movement, with a speech from Malcolm Turnbull. Now, they all got that for free. But you Conservative students wanting just the debate, you got to pay. I mean, don't you think this is a giant joke?
It just seems the administration is very selective with what they would like to see when it comes to their specific application of the definition of free speech, which is very disappointing. It's especially disappointing that given we specifically contacted them explaining this issue, and it was completely ignored.
Jack O'Brien, look, I admire you guys for having the courage to stand. It's not easy to stand up to the abuse, to demand your rights when a university seems against you, when you get howled down, sometimes face physical violence. We've shown some of the violence that occurs on your university. So I say, Jack, you guys are the future. Thank you so much for standing up for your rights and for free speech in this country. Too few adults do. Jack O'Brien, I'm glad that you at least do.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that very much.